welcome to Phillip Island, Victoria in Australia. What a setting we have for this great sporting contest, the Little Penguin Sea to Dune race. Nervous moments always as they gather on the beach, the tension mounting, and away they go. There's the defending champion, wearing his familiar navy blue and white, great waddling style. Another pre-race favourite though, losing touch with the pack. Maybe that's why. A few too many fish in the day's feeding. There's a familiar face, Skip McIntyre, 8 times a champion back in the 90s, a very successful coach now, keeping a keen eye on proceedings. This the leading group, 1 or 2 still able to put on a show for the camera, others just ploughing straight over it. Some resorting to shortcuts. Sad that cheating has crept into this beautiful sport. The judges will have a look at that. But up at the front, the pace is relentless, closing in on those sand dunes that will offer a bed for the night. The fatigue starting to tell. Who's got the finishing kick up on the outside? What a turn of pace from that one, whichever one it is. No answer from the rest, and he takes victory. What a win. There we are, into the Burrow, building an extension with his winnings, and back tomorrow to try and defend his title here on Phillip Island.
Welcome to Live Penguin TV. My name's Megan and I'm going to be your host tonight as we watch our little penguins, the world's smallest species of penguin tonight, coming out of the water, crossing the beach and heading back to their burrows here on Phillip Island in Victoria, Australia. And tonight I'm joined by Rach. Rach, do you want to come on in and tell us what you'll be doing tonight?
Hi guys, hi everyone, hi Megan, thank you very much. I will be monitoring your questions on Facebook and YouTube, so please feel free to put them in and I'll pass them on to Megan tonight. If you're wondering what time the penguin came home yesterday, they came home at 6:27, so hopefully tonight will be about the same. I'll let you guess the number before I'll let you know how many came home yesterday.
Great, thank you Rach. I think it's a little bit darker and cloudier tonight, so the penguins might be a little bit later, but we will keep our eyes peeled. And if you did watch last night, pop in your guesses how many you think came home last night, and we'll let you know in a little bit how many there were. And keep in mind, Tom was counting last night. Tom's an optimistic counter. But I think we did have pretty good penguin numbers last night. Tonight, up in the little skybox you can see on the screen there, we do have Elizabeth counting. And Elizabeth, I think, is a pretty good penguin counter. She's been working here for longer than I've been alive. So she has penguin counted for many, many years. So I'm going to say we're going to get a really great, accurate penguin count tonight. So we'll scroll across from the main stands here. And we are looking out over Summerland Beach. So that's this beautiful beach that we're looking across over. And as we head across over the ocean, we are looking out towards Bass Strait from Summerland Bay here. And we can even see all the way out to the other end of Phillip Island. So you can see out past Kitty Miller Bay, Berries Beach, and then Pyramid Rock, and out in the distance, that little blinking light is Cape Bullimai, which you see as you're driving across the bridge here onto Phillip Island. And all of this beautiful landscape is part of Milau, which is a traditional name for Phillip Island, and it is the traditional lands of the Bunurong. So the Bunurong were the first people coming here to Milau thousands and thousands of years ago. They would come here in spring and summer to feed on things like short-tailed shearwater birds and shellfish all around the island. So when you are able to come and visit, you can see those traditional Aboriginal midden sites all around the island, piles of shells and bones, and those sites that were kind of like a kitchen, a meeting site, and a dining room all in one, where they would cook and eat and share those stories. So we have many of those beautiful sacred places all around Milau. And I would just like to acknowledge the Bunurong and their elders past, present and emerging as the traditional custodians of this beautiful land, and for the care they've taken for this country over those thousands of years. And they would have been the first people seeing the penguins coming out of the water and making their homes here on Milau. And speaking of penguins, let's see if we can spot any rafts out on the water. It is reasonably calm out there tonight, and the penguins have been out at sea fishing all day. There might be some that have stayed on land. They might have come in last night, the night before, and decided to stay here and have a little bit of a rest. But most of them would have been out at sea looking for food. It is where they spend about 80% of their time out there, diving up and down, usually over 1,000 times every day, looking for small fish, things like anchovies, pilchards, jellyfish, squid, anything small enough for them to fit into their little beaks and swallow whole. And they can sometimes bring back around a quarter of their own body weight when they have hungry chicks to feed. So when they decide they want to come up onto land, they don't come up every day. They might have been out there for days or weeks before they decide to come back here onto Milau, and they've been out there forming groups that we call rafts for the last couple of hours before sunset. So I think I can see a couple of rafts. Let me see the capabilities of my camera, if I can zoom in a little bit, because they are a bit further out tonight. You guys better not keep us waiting. But if you have, oh, hang on, let's see if we can focus a little bit better. If you have a nice big TV you're watching this on, or if you have better eyesight than me, you might be able to see these black lines on the surface of the water here, just below that headland out to the left. Just before you get to the rocks there, below that, you can see those two black lines, and those are rafts of penguins. And that's why we call them a raft, because that is, kind of what they like, just something floating on the surface. And that's a nice big group of penguins. And they look like that because that is all their little heads popping up out of the water, looking at the horizon, looking at where our camera is, waiting for it to get a little bit darker. Because once it gets dark, that's when they are safe to cross the beach. Now, our little penguins here on Phillip Island, they do live all along the southern coast of Australia. There's different colonies. You can also find them in New Zealand, and they are the smallest of all 18 species of penguin. So they only grow to be about 33 centimetres or 1 foot tall, just bigger than a school ruler, and they only weigh about 1 kilo. And because they're so small, they are vulnerable to big birds of prey. Now, when they're in the water, they're really well camouflaged and hard to see for those aerial predators. They blend in really well with the water, especially when they're by themselves, because we can see them quite clearly in a big group. But no one wants to mess with a big group of penguins. And when they come out of the water and cross the beach is when they are the most vulnerable, because they're not so quick or agile in the water. They're not as well camouflaged. So when they come up onto land, they are vulnerable to something like a sea eagle or a Pacific gull or a swamp harrier. Rach and I on our way in tonight actually saw a whistling kite on the side of the road, which was pretty special. And then as I was driving a little bit closer to work, I saw a swamp harrier fly over. So I imagine they were getting ready for bed, I hope. And now our penguins should be safe to come in and cross the beach. And they have these big groups just in case any of those birds are still flying around looking for a late night snack. They're not going to try and pick out an individual penguin, or if they are going to try to, it's going to be a lot more difficult. We don't often see predators even trying to to catch any penguins down here at night. On the odd occasion, the only thing I've ever seen trying to mess with our penguins is a juvenile Pacific gull. I like to think they're a little bit young, a little bit inexperienced, and they sometimes give it a go, but I've never seen one successfully get a penguin because they are in these big groups. And in their defense, if they feel threatened, they'll run back into the water because that is where they are the safest. In these big groups, really quick, really well camouflaged out there in the ocean. And these rafts are moving super fast, getting really close right now, and it's a bit later than the time they came in last night. So there goes my theory that it's a bit cloudier, and I thought that they would be a little bit earlier. Every time we try and say the penguins are going to do one thing, I feel like they like to prove us wrong and just do something a little bit different. But here they come up to the edge of the water, and it looks like one raft there on the right, one on the left, and then another one out the back, or maybe even another little one coming in as well. And I might even have to zoom out to try and get all these penguins as they come up onto land. And as they come up, try and count them if you want to practice your penguin counting skills. See how many penguins you can count coming out of the water. Oh goodness, don't go right to the edges of my camera's capability. Sorry, let me try and... Let's just zoom in on this group here. And I hope we've all got in our guesses for how many penguins we think came in last night. And I'll get Rach to give us the numbers. How many penguins did we have last night, Rach?
We've got very good guesses. The winner would be Jason Baldwin. He guessed 1,254.
Oh, very close.
Very close. Just one number off. We had 1,253 came home yesterday.
Wow, thanks, Rach, and well done, Jason. One penguin off. That's quite impressive. Rach didn't even give you any special hints tonight. 1,253 penguins last night, and it looks like we're off to a really good start tonight. Those two groups have joined together to one giant group, or a waddle, as we like to call a group of penguins on land. They're no longer a raft now, they're out of the water. They're coming up and crossing the beach, and they're not waiting for anyone, not even these straggler penguins. They are powering across the beach. Sometimes, you know, they tend to be a little bit nervous, waiting at the edge of the water, having a look around, making sure that there's no predators around. But they had a nice big group and a reasonably high tide tonight, so they didn't waste any time. If they do get a fright, they'll run back, but no, not tonight. So they didn't even give Elizabeth much time to count them, but I have a lot of faith in Elizabeth's counting skills. She's probably our expert penguin counter here at the Penguin Parade. Thank you, Elizabeth. And I think she might have even let us know how many there were in that group, right? How many did we have?
She did a good guess of 2,000 and
2,000!
225.
225. Whoa, it was a massive group, and I think it's those two groups that have joined together that have given us that mega group, because we did have last night, we had two groups of around 100 come in, one after the other. So tonight they've just joined forces and formed one nice big group, over 200 penguins in that group. That is very impressive and very quick counting skills. So let us know if you counted similar, if you think Elizabeth was close. And is that a shell gritter already? Just looking down the bottom of the screen here, while all these penguins are walking over the rocks and along down to their pathways, there's this little penguin down here in the middle of it all, walking the wrong way. Looked like she was having a bit of a peck at the ground, so that might be one of those female penguins getting ready to lay eggs. I think she's being bumped around a little bit by these other penguins around her. Let me try and zoom in a little bit. So I did think, I think we might even have a second one. Hang on, let me go back out. Yeah, she's pecking at the ground, looking for those little pieces of shell to get some extra calcium to help build the shell of her egg. And we saw quite a few shell gritters last night. Ooh, penguins on the highway. So it's very exciting. We're seeing so much action in the colony, is what I'm going to say. A lot of action last night. Hopefully some more action tonight. Lots of shell gritters, courtship and the like happening. A very good sign for the start of our penguin breeding season. and lots of penguins going along on the highway. Oh, I don't even need to turn the camera around. Here comes some more. And I think this is probably one of my favourite perspectives. What are you doing? Running into the window? There's no one in there, guys. You're all good. Looks, they sometimes do that when something gives them a little bit of a fright. So maybe there's a mischievous goose wandering around or something that's given them a little bit of a scare. And they can see through into that window, so they might have thought they could escape that way, but no such luck. Sorry, guys. But I do love watching them here on the Penguin Highway. It is our most popular penguin pathway, which is why we call it the highway. And you get to see all their different funny walks. And this one here, all the different ways they walk are so funny. Some of them just walk with such confidence. They puff their chest out and kind of strut along. Some of them are a bit more nervous and kind of skitter along a little bit. And then some of them just have the most hilarious way that they move about. Ooh, and over on the highway again, we have this penguin that's come out on the left-hand side. Now, if you're watching last night, you might remember a male penguin coming down from a similar area and trying to woo some females. So I wonder if it's the same one and if he's going to try and do it again. It looks like it. Yep, I think he's a serial offender. He is. He's burrowing nice and close to the highway and he's trying to pick up while all the girls are on their way home. How rude. So that one that you can see putting his wings out like that, he'll be going kind of saying, hey ladies, look at me, I've got this really nice burrow, come home with me. But no, it hasn't worked. I suspect that this is what he's going to be doing until he finds a partner for the breeding season. Or maybe he does have a partner and she's not home tonight and he's getting up to some mischief. Who knows? We'll have to see if someone comes back to this burrow to spend some time with him. And oh, maybe that's her in the bushes. What is he up to? Oh, goodness me. This penguin's going to provide me with a lot of entertainment tonight. I can see that already. We're going to have to keep an eye on him to see what he's doing. I might leave the camera there and go back to the main camera real quick because it looks like we have lots more penguins pouring in. Oh my goodness, I can hardly keep up with everything that's going on right now. Looks like another big group has arrived. Oh, penguins coming in, going along the highway. Let me switch back to the highway because there's plenty going on there as well. Let's zoom back out. Oh, and there's a penguin with quite a funny walk. Look at this one here. He's kind of got his foot out to the side a little bit and he almost looks like he's limping. And you might see that quite often. Oh, goodness me. Because there are penguins with funny walks and there's also penguins with old injuries. And often that can make them look like, there's something wrong, and it might be something that happened years ago and they're all healed up and they're fine. And as long as a penguin is looking fat and healthy and can get to where it needs to go, we typically leave them alone because these are wild animals that we are watching tonight. Sorry, I'm getting distracted again by this male and his little entourage he's got going on. Oh, actually there might be a little mother's group coming down here, sneaking past that boy over there and heading down along the highway. I'm going to say this is a little mother's group of shell critters heading down to the beach. So I think we saw a similar mother's group coming down here last night, and oh, there's that boy again. I don't think you're going to have any success with the shell critter. She's already got a partner and some eggs on the way. Doesn't stop him trying though. You can see she's not interested. And if you saw the special penguin cuddles last night, you don't have to worry about anything. If the female's not interested, she just has to stand up straight, and there's nothing the boys can do about it. They just have to go find someone else. And I'm getting sidetracked again by all this excitement going on here. Let me turn the camera around and we'll follow this little mother's group along the highway. Yeah, but if we do see a penguin who's really, really struggling, or they might look really skinny, or like they have a recent injury, we do have a wildlife clinic here at Phillip Island Nature Parks, and that is to look after any sick and injured wildlife, not just penguins. And that's something that is funded by the work we do here at Phillip Island Nature Park. So we are a conservation organisation funded by tourism. So usually when people can come and visit us here at the Penguin Parade, you buy a ticket, or you buy some food here, or a souvenir, or if you go to visit the Koala Reserve, Churchill Island Heritage Farm, the Nobby's Antarctic Journey, all that money goes back into conservation, education and research for our wildlife and our wild places here on Phillip Island. And at the moment, while we are unfortunately closed, if you do want to help us out with the work that we do here, you can help by donating to the Penguin Foundation. You can adopt a penguin symbolically. Again, they're wild animals. They don't really, wouldn't make a good pet. And you can adopt a range of the animals that we have here on Phillip Island to help support that research, conservation, education work that goes on here at Phillip Island Nature Parks. And part of that does include that wildlife clinic that I was talking about. And I did want to talk about that tonight because after last night's live stream, I got a call on the radio from Kathleen, who was over on the main stands with Tom, and Tom was counting the penguins, and he saw a penguin who was really struggling to cross the beach. Oh, and there goes our little shell gritter down along the rocks. So this penguin had tried to get up across the rocks, and he'd had to run back, and he kind of couldn't stand properly, and he tried to cross again, and it didn't look like he was going to make it. So Tom told Kathleen, and she went down, and she was able to catch him and pop him into a little wildlife box, nice and cozy, with a towel. And I came down and collected him and took him over to the wildlife clinic so he could be assessed and see if he was okay or if he might need some treatment before he's able to be released back into the wild. So I took him over there and I weighed him, and he was a very fat penguin. That's why I'm calling him a he, because he was over 1,100 grams, which is a lot for a penguin. I think I said before their average weight is about 1 kilo. And there goes another shell gritter on the highway. And another one. I think this is actually our mother's group. I think they had a little bit of a rest break there. Over 1 kilo. This one was 1,140 grams. Is a very good weight. So although he had a funny little foot and he was struggling to walk a little bit, that didn't stop him finding lots of food out at sea. So the important thing for a penguin is that they have nice, strong, healthy flippers to be able to swim really quick out in the ocean and catch that food. And what are you doing running back? Because all they need their feet for in the water is to help them steer a little bit. So if they can find food out at sea, that means they're going to survive. And maybe it'll take them a little bit longer if they do need to come up onto land to get back to their burrows. But this guy, he went to the clinic just to make sure that he was okay. That he was nice and healthy, gave him some fluids, and hopefully he'll be able to be released back into the wild after he's had maybe a little bit of care and assessment. So this is why our rangers need to be trained in penguin handling and wildlife first aid, because especially at the moment, there's only a few of us out here on a nightly basis. So we need to be able to spot any injured penguins. Oh, what was going on there? And treat them as necessary and take them to the wildlife clinic if we think that there might be something wrong. Sorry, I just saw this penguin look like it was doing something weird, but maybe I'm just seeing things. Are you going to go up along the highway? Okay. So that's a really important part of the work that we're able to do here at Phillip Island Nature Parks, and we're really grateful that at least a few of us rangers get to be out here to run the live stream and count the penguins, even while we're not able to have people here at the moment. And there we go, she's figured out that she did want to go this way after all. She got a bit carried away running up the highway with those other penguins, got her a bit off track. Let's go back to the main beach and see what's going on down here. Maybe while I do that, Rach, do we have any questions? I haven't answered any questions yet.
Maybe you can answer 2 questions at once.
Yes, great. I'll do my best.
We've got Alexa Kuwenjing Mowi and Melissa, a 5-year-old, is asking, How do penguins feed their chicks? Plus, why are baby penguins fluffy?
Okay, how do they feed their chicks?
And why are
And
baby
why are
penguins
they fluffy? Okay, so the first one, how do they feed their chicks? So I said before, they can bring back about a quarter of their own body weight in food, and if they're bringing back that much food, it's usually for their chicks. And what they do is they swallow it down into their tummies, they go back to their burrow, and they regurgitate it into their chick's mouth. So it's not the nicest way to receive food, but it's effective. And one of our head penguin biologists here, Dr. Andre, we like to call him Professor Penguin, he likes to say penguins are like walking fridges, because they can actually change the acidity of their stomach so that when they're foraging for their chicks, they don't digest too much of the food that they're bringing back to their babies. So it doesn't get too yucky and mushy. It's as much of a solid fishy soup as they can. So I hope I'm not getting too graphic. And more shell gritters. Or the same ones, I don't know. I've lost track. So they can bring back as much fish to their chicks as possible. Oh, that wasn't very nice. Penguin just pecked the poor shell gritter because she's going the wrong way. They need lanes, you know, a lane for the penguins going that way, a lane for the penguins going that way. No, they'll figure it out. They know what they're doing. So that's how they feed their chicks. And why are penguin chicks fluffy? That's a good question. I guess I've never really thought too much about it. So this is going to kind of be my best guess. I'm going to say to keep them warm, because the chicks don't have to go out to sea. So they're not big enough and strong enough to go out and fend for themselves when they're young, and that's when they're fluffy. So when they first hatch from the egg, they only weigh about 35 grams, so they fit right in the palm of your hand here. They're teeny tiny. They can't even hold their head up. So it does take them quite a while to be big enough and strong enough to head out to sea. Well, I want to turn the camera around. So when they're first born, they have these really dark, slick little lot of feathers that come off within the first few days, and they are a bit fluffy for the next few weeks. So they have brown, fluffy down, and that helps keep them really nice and warm, because they want to be able to regulate their temperature when they're stuck here on land. They might be in a burrow that's cold, or they might feel a little bit warm, so they have to be able to regulate that temperature, and I guess that fluff will hopefully help them do that. And then once they get to about 2 to 4 weeks old, that's when they start to lose their baby fluff, because that's when they are getting ready to be able to be adult penguins to head out to sea. So they'll start to gradually lose that fluff, and the fluff will start to fall out, and they'll get these beautiful blue and white feathers. So they'll have 2 layers of feathers when they're fully grown. They'll actually have some soft fluffy down underneath, so kind of like their fluffy chick feathers, that helps to keep them warm and regulate their temperature, and also trap a layer of air against their skin to make them buoyant so they can float on the surface of the water. And then they grow this coat of blue and white feathers that are completely waterproof. So all those feathers, there's about 10,000 teeny tiny feathers on just one penguin. And these waterproof feathers all interlock together to form a waterproof barrier. So on an adult penguin who's healthy out at sea, water should never touch their skin. It's kind of like having a dry suit over a doona. They're nice and warm and toasty and waterproof when they have these adult feathers. So but yeah, that's my best guess about the fluffy chicky feathers to keep them warm. What do you think, Rach?
I think that sounds really, really good.
Yeah.
Makes sense too.
Yeah, thank you for that one.
Thank you, guys.
And let's see what's going on. Ooh, what's going on over here? And this time of year is probably one of my favourite times of year to see what's going on in the colony, because it is kind of like the penguin dating scene is in full swing. So everyone's out looking for a partner, looking for someone to be their mate for that season. So there's some males trying to impress some females with their dancing and their singing skills and their impressive burrows. So there can be a bit of that going on, a little bit of special penguin cuddles, also a little bit of fighting because the males. Ooh, speaking of, looks like someone over here is doing a bit of a courtship dance. And the males can be quite territorial of their burrows and of their partners, so sometimes you do get some penguin fights, which aren't as cute as you think. They can get quite feisty, these little birds, and they have quite a sharp beak and can give a pretty nasty bite. So we've actually seen penguins draw blood in a fight over burrows. But it does kind of settle down once the breeding season started and they found their partners, they found their burrows. What's going on over here in the bushes? So usually that's when it kind of settles down a little bit, and the penguins have found their partners. The love affairs aren't as common, and they'll settle down to raise their chicks and hatch those eggs. But sometimes we do see, some more drama in the penguin world. They could almost have their own little soap opera. I don't know who's partner here and who's trying to fight off who. There's like a little penguin love triangle going on, which is something that Jordan and I saw when we were doing burrow checks last year for research. Oh, there's more penguins coming in the background. So we have these burrows that get checked regularly so we can monitor what's going on in the colony. So things like when the breeding season starts, what the breeding success is like. And one of the things we had to do was make a file, we called it the pair file, of who was partnered with who in what burrow, and tracking each breeding attempt to see how successful they were. So whether they had an attempt and it failed, or whether they were successful, how many chicks that pair was able to raise. And there was this one burrow that consistently had, I think it was like 5 different penguins that were coming in and out of this burrow. And then one day there was an egg in the burrow, and then there was another egg outside the burrow, and then there was another female in the burrow. And we were looking at all these data, just trying to figure out what on earth was going on. And it was some kind of strange penguin love pentangle. There was like 2 different males and 3 different females who were all fighting for partners and fighting for burrows, and there was a lot of drama going on. And then one of the females decided to lay her egg, and then looks like one of the other females or the vying male came and kicked her out, and she went and laid her egg somewhere else. And it was all very dramatic, and unfortunately they couldn't settle on a partner for the season, so we didn't actually end up seeing anyone successfully raise chicks in that burrow. But hopefully they figured it out and they might have found somewhere else to nest, because there was too much drama going on there, too much penguin drama. Oh, and more penguins coming along the highway, and we have 5 minutes or so left, so we might try and get through a couple more questions. If you've got some questions for me, Rach.
We do. We have got questions from Sam Christian Smith.
Mm-hmm.
How do penguins choose their breeding box? Plus, maybe we can answer this too. Martin Conboy, how long does it take for the penguins to get home?
Okay, I might do the quicker one first. How long does it take them to get home? It depends on where they live. So some penguins live right down here near the beach. Some have that prime real estate looking right out over the ocean. It doesn't take them long at all to get home. Some of them are right across the beach and then they're back at their burrow straight away. But some penguins might have to walk up to 2 kilometres to get home. So there's some penguins probably up at the top of the hill near the building. I think it maybe takes them about 15-20 minutes to get up there, and that's probably, how far do you think that is, Rach?
It's pretty long way.
Yeah, let's say it's around 1 kilometre. So I think if they're living around 2 kilometres away, it might take them almost an hour to get home, which is quite difficult if you're a penguin and it's taking you a while, but they have the whole night to get back. So you can see these guys here, they'll stop and have little breaks along the way, catch their breath, hang out with their friends who came in their group with them, and then they'll keep going to make their way home. So it might take them a little while. And how do they choose where they live? Well, so the penguins that live really far away, they don't really know any different, because they come back to usually, because there's never any absolutes when it comes to biology and wildlife. So they usually come back to the place where they were born. to make their burrow. So usually they'll come to within about 45-50 meters of where they were born, and it's years in between when they hatch and when they fledge and head out to sea. It's usually a couple of years before they start to breed, but they will come back to that same area around where they were born to make their burrows. So they'll come back and they'll have a bit of a look around, try and find maybe an empty burrow, like a hole in the ground or a wooden box that's unclaimed. And then if someone comes back, and that's usually their burrow, if they use it the previous season and they did well in it, and it's a more experienced penguin, they might come back and say, hey, you get out of there, that's my burrow. They'll have a little bit of a tussle if the younger penguin puts up an argument. And then they might have to look elsewhere for a burrow, or they might get lucky and have a burrow that no one else wants, that's already been dug, or there might already be a wooden box. Oh, there goes another shell gritter. So they might get lucky, or they might have to dig a burrow themselves, which is a bit more work, but it is what penguins do naturally, especially as the colony might be expanding. So our colony has expanded from, in the 80s, there was around 8,000 to 12,000 penguins. And with the conservation work that's gone into protecting them here on Phillip Island, we now have around probably over 32,000 penguins here on the Summerland Peninsula. So certainly as that colony grew back up to those higher numbers, because we actually used to have 10 colonies of penguins all around Phillip Island. So it certainly used to be a penguin colony at one time or another, but let's watch this little shell gritter. But now, as those numbers have gone back up, penguins have spread into areas where they haven't been for a very long time. So there's probably no old burrows there to use or claim, and they have to go in and dig those burrows themselves. So that's the job mainly for the males. The females will help out a little bit. Oh, this poor shell gritter trying to navigate her way against the tide of penguins. So yeah, they might have to go out and dig their very first burrow, but then if they do well in there, they will keep using that burrow over time. And I suspect that maybe a young male may not make the best choice in his first burrow. So if he doesn't do well, then he's more likely to move around, because they can move around. They do come back to the same area, but not necessarily always the same burrow. And it's like partners. If they don't do well with a certain partner, then they might get a divorce, as we like to call it. If they have a poor breeding season, then they might go and find someone else. Kind of, oh, you weren't so good at raising my chicks last season. I'm going to go find someone a little bit better. So in those seasons where we see lower breeding success, then the penguins are more likely to get divorced. So we can have sometimes a divorce rate of up to about 50%, but in a good season it can be as low as 18%, that divorce rate. And then they may go find a new burrow if they haven't done well in there, because sometimes things might happen, like if we get a lot of rain. There was a couple years ago where we had a lot of rain, and our river was flowing down from Swan Lake, and it got really, really high, and there was a penguin who'd made its burrow on the side of the river, and it got flooded. So I suspect that penguin's not going back to that burrow. It learnt its lesson. So they are quite adaptable to make sure that they're having their best chance at successfully raising chicks and passing on their genes to that next generation, which is, the goal for these little guys here, these wild animals, these little penguins that we have here on Phillip Island.
We've got a very personal question for you, Megan.
Oh, okay.
From Penny Boberman. When was the first time you saw a penguin, Megan?
The first time I saw a penguin?
Yeah.
Ever? It'd probably be at the zoo when I was a kid. Because I know there's a little colony of not a colony, there's a little display of penguins at Melbourne Zoo, and that was probably the first ever penguins that I saw. Apart from that, I don't remember ever seeing them at the Penguin Parade when I was a kid. So I probably didn't see them again then until outside a zoo in the wild, probably when I started to do my honours research on penguins. I probably hadn't really been out and seen the penguins before. So I guess when I was at uni and I was trying to choose a project that I wanted to study for the next year of my life, I thought penguins sounded like a pretty good project. So I signed up for that one and I spent 9 months with the little penguins out at St Kilda near the city. There's a colony there. So I went out with some of the researchers and some of the volunteers and learned how to handle penguins and study penguins. And then I came to work here at the nature parks and I've worked with penguins ever since. It's probably been 6 or 7 years of penguins now. So that's how I've learnt so much about them, from not knowing anything about penguins, going out to study them and try and learn a little bit more about them, to now being here telling you all about little penguins. That's a very good question. Rach, do you remember when you first saw penguins?
Ooh, that would be in 5 years ago. 6 months before I started working with Nature Park, I actually came to Phillip Island and watched penguins here on the Penguin Parade, at the Penguin Parade.
Oh wow!
6 months before.
And
yeah.
then was that
So
how you
5 years
decided to apply for a job here?
No, well, I wasn't. It was really
Oh,
interesting,
shoulders.
but then, yes, just so happened that I worked here 6 months later. So
Oh,
it's
just
really,
a coincidence.
yeah, it is.
Oh wow!
Yes. So
And you
probably-
never looked back either.
No, it's been
We're still
one of the
here.
greatest. Yes, it's greatest. But yeah, maybe we can have one last one, you think? Do you think so?
Okay, one
Just
last
one
question.
last one. We
Go
may
for
not
it.
know the answer though. We've got Jamila Munkaila asking, do we know any Aboriginal names for the penguins?
No.
I think we've been talking about it, but we haven't had any records, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know. I know the Bunurong name for Shearwater is Byaden. I knew the one for Bandicoot and it has left my mind.
Do you think we can find it in Nature Notes?
I don't think it's
Bandicoots?
no, I don't
Oh,
think it's in
okay.
the nature notes. I can ask and try and find out. Yeah, it's a very good question.
It
I feel
is.
like it's something we should maybe know. And I don't want to get anything wrong, so I'm going to say we will come back to that at a later date, and I'll see if I can find out. And you know what? There may not be a name that we know of because a lot of Bunurong knowledge has been lost because there weren't a lot of Bunurong people left after European settlement. So hopefully we will be able to find that information
Yeah,
out for
nice.
you. But it's there you go. I can tell you Byaden is the name for those short-tailed shearwaters, and we'll try and get a name for the penguins and maybe some of the other wildlife if we can.
We've got Jenny saying, probably, let me see quickly, Bungie? Was it Jenny Crowley or saying Bungie?
So
the penguin.
Bunjil is a wedge-tailed eagle.
And is it Bungie? So maybe we'll...
I don't think Bungie is what one of our penguins is our penguins, our
Koala.
koalas is named after. I could be wrong, but I don't think it means penguin.
We'll check it.
We will check
And
it
we'll
out.
get back to them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
But yes, Bunjil, I do know that one. I do have my little, where is it? Badge with Bunjil on it. The wedge-tailed eagle, the great creator spirit. So if you do see Bunjil flying around, it's meant to be good luck for your time on that country. So very special if you do see Bunjil. And oh my goodness, is that special penguin cuddles on the beach? Roger's just saying we're out of time. Okay, but that's not something you see very often. Normally it's out of burrow or on the pathway, but they must be really keen to be on the beach. There you go. Let me leave them with some privacy. Find some other penguins to look at, because I think Rachel's right. We are out of time for tonight, and I think the penguin numbers have slowed crossing the beach. So thank you so much for tuning in tonight. If you do want to help us out with the work we do here at Phillip Island Nature Parks, you can donate to the Penguin Foundation. I'd highly recommend adopting a penguin. You can give it a symbolic name and everything, and help us out, especially with some of our conservation research work, and even that penguin hospital, the wildlife clinic that we have here as well. So I hope you've all had a fantastic night. Tune in again tomorrow night and the next night while we are running our live Penguin TV. And let me follow these penguins around while we finish up. And if you watch again tomorrow night, let us know how many penguins you think have crossed the beach tonight. So thank you so much everyone for tuning in tonight, and we'll see you again next time.
Yeah, we will.
Come in or say goodbye.
Say
Bye
bye.
everyone.